This is part two of our interview with Tate Siemer of Greenlight Capital. If you haven't listened to part one, go back and check out last week's episode number 49. This week, we continue that episode right where we left off. Tate ended the last episode on an important note. To do well, to do better, you need a team. We pivot to Tate's podcast called The Apartment Guys and eventually his new mastermind. Now, here's the rest of the interview. Enjoy. This is the Yield Coach Show, episode 50. Hey everybody, this is your coach Ian Brown. A few announcements. Yield Coach Capital has opened its doors to investors looking to multiply their money while working with yours truly and our varsity investment team. We recently closed our 170-acre Gainesville, Florida industrial tract, and our limited partner investors are on pace to make 2.5 times or more on their money. That opportunity is gone, but don't miss the next one. Be sure to join our investor list and never miss a deal again. You can join our investor list by the portal, which is in the show notes of this podcast. It's in our Instagram bio link, and you can also do it at yield-coach.com. If you join our investor list, we will get you the free gift, 107 questions to ask a deal sponsor, and a discount to our Employee to Entrepreneur video course, which is packed full of information and case studies to kickstart your investment success. Now is your time to take the field. It's a slight pivot, but it's related. You're talking about like your net worth being related to your network. Well, yeah. I came to know you through your podcast, and we talked about it early on, Apartment Gurus. And if you could, I wanted to get your take on episode, your thoughts on the power of podcasting. It is a one-to-many platform. I think a lot of us, like you said, we're coming up around like that kind of 50, 60 recording mark. And I know we'll be at 100 in no time. And it's not all about the number of guests, about the quality of the conversations. But, so if you could just speak to kind of a blend of podcasting and personal branding and really what it's done, if you don't mind sharing kind of what it's done for you, so people know with some tangibility, why put the effort in.
Totally. Yeah. And this may not be the answer that people are looking for on this one. Because I think the direct effects of having a successful podcast, even with a good listener base and response rate, et cetera, like number of downloads that you're getting, that sort of thing, it's pretty indirect, to be honest with you. Like what I've noticed, and I've done, my podcast is going on 3 years old. 207 episodes, I think we're up to now. And the reason I started was because I was in Corey's mastermind, and there were like 15 of us in this mastermind. We were all in person, and he looked at us, all of us at one point, and he's like, every single one of you guys should have a podcast. And again, this was before, so much has changed since then, as far as like, especially YouTube personalities and personal branding on steroids. Personal branding wasn't really a huge concept in the vernacular back then. It is so much more so now. And it's something I work on with my coaching clients, is their personal branding, their social media presence, and their thought leadership platforms, whatever that looks like. When I started the podcast, my resistance around doing it was like, this is going to be a ton of work, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to produce the technology. I can't edit. I'm going to have to learn a whole bunch of stuff that isn't even related to real estate. And, so essentially I just kind of took the leap of faith with it. And I had a buddy who's still a good friend who started it with me. That's why we're called the Apartment Guys at first. And quite frankly, just to be totally real, like I found that I just wanted total creative control over the whole thing. And I was kind of doing all of the things anyway, like putting the logo together and marketing and all the websites. And so it was, and we were close enough and trusted each other enough that I could kind of say to him like, hey man, I think I'm going to just take this and run with it. And he was cool with it. I think for the most part. And And he has not, like, he was thinking of getting to multifamily at that point, and has not. He's still in the development space, which is great. But I found right away that I really just love the process. And that's true of almost all parts of the business that I'm in, between investing and coaching, running a mastermind, and podcasting. Like, I really, really enjoy the actual doing of the activities. And the podcast in particular, I said, up until I started coaching last year and officially launched that, I said over and over again, like, this podcast is the coolest thing I've ever done professionally. It's in amongst, I probably I probably could consider doing it in a vacuum, because, getting to hang out with you for whatever, an hour ish, and have this level of conversation and connection. Like, you and I could go to lunch or go get coffee, go to a baseball game, whatever, and we're not going to have this same kind of conversation. We would have a lot to talk about, and, we'd get into some pretty cool stuff, I would think. But when you're showing up with the intention of adding value to a listener base, and just, creating whatever value you can and whatever impact you can, it's kind of next level. And to me, it's just been like the guests that I've had on, some of the names in the space, the Neil Bawas and the Brian Burks, and the Tim Brotzes and Corey, and I can kind of go on and on. I've had over 200 guests, and it's really like moving to me to reflect on that. Those people would take, whatever time they had to take out of their schedule to add value to my creative endeavor that I'm sharing with the listener base. It's incredibly satisfying to me. And I had no idea that I was going to like it like I do. And I still love it. Like, when we did episode 200, it was like, I know there's going to be an episode 400. It's like, I just love doing it. And coaching has eclipsed it a little bit, because it's such a higher impact, direct activity where you get to see the impact of the work you're doing in people's lives and in their businesses. And that's completely next level, like, such an honor and privilege to get to play the role of coach in high level entrepreneurs' life. Like, these guys are out to get it. They're writing LOIs on $10 million, 150 unit deals right now, and raising capital and doing their social media stuff. And I mean, so to get to play in this space with people like that, and to contribute however I can, is so satisfying. And again, like, the way my life's set up, with very little in the way of like direct, like, immediate family commitments, especially other than my dog Joey, like, it lends really well to the coaching thing, because I can jump on a call with somebody that's like crunch time on a deal and needs to dial in his underwriting. I can, get on a Zoom, we can share screens, we can really deep dive every single aspect of the underwriting, make sure there aren't any critical errors. Like, it's kind of like there's finally some really cool integration in my world. Not finally, because it's been happening for a bit, but like, the different parts of my business serving the other parts of my business. And so, yeah. So, just to kind of finish up on the podcast point, like, we've gotten investors from the podcast for sure. Probably more often, we've actually had investors that found us either through our own network, like friends and family, or referrals, that check out the podcast after they hear about us. Right. So it's a credibility building, asset for sure. And I think it serves us really well. It's good for branding and everything else, but it's not why I do it. if that's all we were getting out of it, I wouldn't do it. Like I do it because it really brings me like a lot of joy, and I would be really sad if I for whatever reason had to quit doing it at this point. I'm sure there'll be a day that I no longer do it, but right now I love it.
Well, thank you. I think that is a surprising. I'm not personally surprised, kind of as a host, and knowing that it is a kind of a vacuum siloed thing. Sometimes you feel like you're like in your closet facing the clothes, like speaking in the dark. But you're not, and you don't always know who's listening or who's going to forward an episode. Also, one other thing is a little bit like on a tangent. People get to know you incredibly well when you host a podcast. Now, if you're on a podcast tour, meaning you're a guest on a lot of shows, people get to know you just like they're getting to know you right now. But if they listen to your show and they've had like 200 hours of Tate in their ear, I'm sure this has happened to you, but and it's happened to me only a handful of times so far. That's why I'm assuming it's happened to you more. But like somebody might meet you in public or a conference or wherever. They know you so well, like the gap in knowledge, like they know you almost like they might know you better than a family member because they know what's on your mind, like right now. And, and to your point, like the intentional transparency and value add nature of the conversation on a podcast is unlike coffee, happy hour, lunch, whatever, because we would probably casually throw off, some industry lingo. What are you working on? Yeah, cool. Start talking about trips and leisure and it would get off course in a heartbeat. And we'd still have a connection, but it's nothing like doing this. So it's fun. Your answer resonates with me. It's not what I thought you were going to say, but I totally understand it because especially as you start to have it, and we're starting to get this too, not to your level, but our guests, here you are today, top caliber guest with a killer podcast. We're starting, that's awesome. Like in the beginning, and anyone that's listening that's thinking about starting a podcast, I would not dissuade you, but just be aware of the fact you're probably just gonna have to ask like your friends that maybe own a business or some property or are inspirational to hop on a show. They may have never had a microphone in their face, but press record. I had some very like extroverted friends on early episodes that like they were not comfortable with a microphone in their face. And then over time, for those that don't know, you're going to have people reaching out to you. We still do reach out. I mean, I reached out to Tate, and that's how it worked. He's a high caliber guy. But eventually you'll have people reaching out to you to be on your show, and you'll have to actually like kind of pick and choose your winners. And that's kind of fulfilling too. It's like, okay, I've risen to a level where at least like, a booking agency would consider putting, 12 one-pagers in front of me and see who might be a fit. So, but talk about education, like being a host and you're 207 episodes in. I mean, high caliber people. You probably where I'm going with this, but you couldn't call, who are some big names? Neil Bawa, Tim, and say, oh, can I have an hour of your time with these like super pointed questions, but not for free. You know what I mean? Way. But you host a podcast, all of a sudden you get all of that for your audience's benefit. But as a host, you obviously grow with it. And so
absolutely.
That's probably like one of my, it was a roundabout answer, but it's probably one of my favorite reasons for hosting a show. So
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're in it for the right reasons, it's going to be very satisfying. It's very creative, right? Like it's an art in a lot of ways. One kind of takeaway possibility for your audience here too is like, Ian's a perfect example of just going out, not knowing what he doesn't know, being audacious and like getting on people's podcasts very early in his progression. There's no reason you can't do that. Like, I don't know that I've had people on that have just not ever done a deal, but I've had people on that are in the middle of their first deal, or just finished their first deal, or own, 4 to 8 plexes and are looking to scale up. And sometimes those become a little bit more like coaching sessions or, like brain dump sessions and like coming up with lots of actionable ideas for that person, which hopefully provides a lot of value. But like being on a podcast tour, you used that phrase earlier, set a goal to be on 20 podcasts a year. That's 20 audiences that you're going to get to share, like you said, transparently, intimately. Like you're going to, if you're authentic and you're bringing your A game, like that is high impact activity. And I think there's even an argument, like, I do 2 podcasts a week, so 100 episodes of the Apartment Gurus a year. And I think there's an argument that if I went out and was on 100 different podcasts instead of doing my own, like I would definitely reach a lot more people. Right. So, I try to do both. And I wouldn't give up the show for anything, but at the same time, there's a tremendous amount of value in being on a show. And, reach out to me, reach out to Ian. Like, we're easy to find, like, and we need guests and want guests, and everybody has value. Everybody has a story. Everybody has things they're learning or have learned, or mistakes they made, and, lessons from those. And, you have a lot more value to bring to something like a podcast episode than you might even think. So, that would be a challenge I'd make to you guys as listeners is, start with 3, right? Like, go out and schedule 3 podcasts, break the ice, just do it. It's going to feel weird and kind of uncomfortable on the first 1, maybe 2, but like, you'll find your groove. And chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you're an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs typically have some charisma and are intelligent and know how to communicate well and know how to, share conceptualize ideas and make things understandable, make complex stuff understandable. Like, if you can do that, like, come talk to me. Let's get you on Apartment Gurus. And like, no matter where you are in your progression, and I've had $1 billion portfolio hold. I had a $1 billion LP on the show recently, and like, it's just amazing to even think that what's sitting on the other side of the table there. But and then I've had people that are in the middle of their first 50 unit deal or whatever on the show. So and everybody brings value.
And I will say, just as like kind of a culmination of this concept of podcasting and a little bit on the personal branding side, Tate said something a few minutes back about it can backfill your credibility. I'm using my own verbiage, but if you do get in maybe into some new circles, and maybe you're slightly out of your depths, or maybe you're not out of your depths, but these people don't know you yet, and this happens a lot as you bring on partners or investors, or maybe you go into like a new market, having, whether you've been on a podcast tour, and when we say that, we mean you've been a guest on other people's shows with some volume and consistency, or you have your own show. I do think it's probably one of, currently, as we sit here, and I think it's one of the better ways for somebody to get comfortable with you, because like Tate and I, we can't hide right now. We're recording, there's cameras in our face, we're well lit, we're on high quality microphones. I mean, if I cough, you hear it. If I sneeze, if I curse, if I botch something, if I quote something wrong, and we're willing to take that risk, and we're willing to let you get to know us. And I think it's currently one of the best ways to kind of break through and backfill credibility, as you said. In my opinion, although we're pretty active on social media, I still think the podcast, even if I don't even really, the quality of eyeball and the quality of content on the podcast, it is higher. It just takes somebody who's patient enough to tune in and, commit to an hour. So.
Yeah. And, attention is one of the most like precious currencies there is right now. So, and you and I both have a deep dive format. Like, we're not recording shorts, and I mean, I'll cut shorts out of the podcast and put them up on, YouTube and et cetera. But, when you have a deep dive format, you're doing 50-minute episodes, 60-minute episodes, like, as a listener, that's a commitment, and, it's our job to make it worth your time and commitment to do that. But like, we're so, like, our attention spans are so historically short right now. Like, there's something like you have like less than a second when you're scrolling through social media to get somebody's attention. So, having people hang out as long as we've been talking here today, like, and listening to all this, there's a different level of value that you're going to get when you invest that kind of time and that kind of attention into a deeper dive thought leadership program. And one other real quick point for listeners is podcasts aren't the only thought leadership platforms there are, right? There's meetup groups. You can start a meetup group, whether that's in person or virtual. You can write blog, you can write books. There's a lot of different ways of being out there and establishing credibility. And you want to be doing something, in my opinion, and ideally you want to be like producing it. Like, if it's a meetup group, great. Like Facebook group, great. Like all that stuff is, if you're the guy, if you're the organizer, you got all those eyes on you, that's going to really serve you well.
I agree. And I think that, we talked about earlier in the episode, knowing your strengths. I think it's naive to say everybody is like really has the acumen to go out there and do this. And I'm not saying that to be braggadocious. Yeah. It's just not for everybody. So if you're more reserved, if you're more controlled, you're more calculated, this might not be the format for you. But to Tate's point, writing, I mean, you can write 20 drafts if you want. Controlled content creation. It could even be you on video, but you can do 1,000 takes if you want. Like that might just be more your personality. So nothing wrong with that.
Look, YouTube personalities these days are massive parts of our society and culture. Like, and if you haven't like really delved into like quote unquote YouTube University in any subject that you're interested in, whether that's lifestyle, diet, nutrition, fitness, business, entrepreneurship, multifamily, obviously you can get as specific as you want. Like the wealth of content on YouTube is, I literally don't feel like I've got enough hours in the day to watch what I want to get in on YouTube, because I follow some amazing thought leaders, and it's very, very high value. And that's new. Like, YouTube's been around for a very long time, but I think the power of the YouTube personality, the influencer on YouTube, is like way higher than it's ever been in the last 3 years. So you can make a big splash there. Like selfie videos, guys, some of the biggest thought leaders in the world just pick up their phone, turn it on and talk into their phone and then post it. Like there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The one thing I'd say is add captions, because people don't always have the volume on, but like that is, just start doing that, 2-3 times a week, and then throwing in a personal post, and then throwing in an informational tour of your property kind of post or whatever that looks like. Like, start mixing it up and establish Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And those are the 3 that I think, and then YouTube's kind of its own thing. But, and just to hit on LinkedIn real quick, if you're not maximizing the opportunity on LinkedIn, and I'm saying this as much to myself as anybody else right now, like you're missing the boat. Like LinkedIn is, Gary Vaynerchuk, I think, said recently that LinkedIn is kind of where Facebook was 13 years ago, in that you've got a massive level of interaction. You can get followers by the hundreds on LinkedIn very quickly, and very little in the way of like advertising. It's just not a commercialized platform. I mean, there is some, but it's not like Instagram and Facebook. So, and like if you need private equity to let's say, to get like a $8 million equity raise done on a, say, $17 million property, go to LinkedIn and do a search on multifamily private equity and see what comes up. Like, go do that right now. As a matter of fact, if you're listening, go do a search in LinkedIn, in the LinkedIn search bar, on multifamily private equity, and then do another one on multifamily debt equity. And debt equity those are going to be people and sources that broker both loans and equity pieces. And, getting into preferred private equity is a different conversation, but eventually when you scale up, you're going to need bigger check writers. LinkedIn, in my opinion, is money, man. It's like, it is just, you can find people and you get a really good idea of who they are and what they do, what their companies do, like right off their profile and right off what they're sharing. So another pro tip for you guys, like LinkedIn is really good. Really, really good.
And I'm glad you said that, because I think some people think, they're very focused on like Instagram and Facebook. Like you
Yeah.
said, there's like not a lot of attention span. And in LinkedIn, the whole platform was made to be professional for professionals.
Right.
And so it's just not full of so much junk. We're working on that. And I know some people have been trying to show me some the premium tools you can use for prospecting. But I'm
Yep.
glad
Sales Navigator. Look into Sales Navigator.
Yeah.
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 Well, in the respect of your time and the audience, we're going to kind of bring it home here. But I usually go into this kind of last section of, resources. What's funny is you're like a walking resource. So it's like, here you are. What can you do with Tate? Off the top of my head, you can invest with Greenlight Equity. You can listen to his podcast, or maybe be a guest. You could join his coaching Octane Mastermind. So you really are like, you're like a walking resource. But we didn't talk a lot about your mastermind. I know we're getting a little bit late in time. I do tend to kind of go into like this resource question about like, literally impactful resources for you. I think you are a walking impactful resource, but what do you like to, recommend to the audience as far as business book, personal development book, and of course, you got a killer podcast.
Yeah, great question. First of all, Multifamily Octane, it's a coaching mastermind. It's a small group format right now, and we're growing, but we're not going to be 400 members probably ever. Like I have way too much hands-on going on with everybody in the group. And I would say if you are not interested in this business, but are like just unstoppably committed to this business and making it happen, we need to talk. Like we should have a talk about joining the mastermind, because it is next level. And if it'll return to you how, what you invest in it, as far as time, effort, energy, obviously money, but it'll 10x you, like, and it'll take a 3 year timeline and shrink it down to 6 months. It's kind of what I specialize in and you mentioned it before, Ian, that this is a business you're starting. So we start at the beginning. We start with branding. We start with mindset. We start with creating a vivid vision. We start with building a team, like putting all the foundational stuff in place, especially mindset. It's a big, big part of it. Putting all that stuff foundationally in place so that when you start deal flow and broker relations and writing offers, like you have everything that you need to move forward at that point. I do some one-on-one coaching as well. My schedule's pretty full right now with that. I could, for the right person, probably squeeze another client or two in, but the value in the mastermind is tremendous. And so that's available, and you can you can find me on social media at Tate Siemer, Siemer, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can connect with me there, and I can get you further info. We're about to launch a marketing funnel for the mastermind that isn't out yet, so I can't give you that info. But definitely, I'd love to have no strings attached, just brainstorming, kind of 15-30 minute call with you, and just talk about what the possibilities might look like. But I think to the bigger point, like. Again, just to kind of simplify, like if somebody came to me and they're like, Tate, I've got 40 grand or 50 grand or 30 grand. How could I start investing in real estate? I would say join a mastermind or hire a coach. Like take that money, invest it in the educational piece, because you're not going to be able to do a whole lot with 20 to 50 grand, whatever that is that you have anyway. So really maximally invest it in something that's going to give you a huge intellectual ROI. Not just intellectual, but you're going to get assets, you're going to get landing pages, funnels, CRMs, like all these systems and processes that you need. Invest in that, and all the other pieces are they're available in relationships, they're available in partnerships, like whether it's money, credit, time, expertise, etc. Like that's where you go get partners.
We talked about it. You got to have skills, right? And having money alone to move it to move the needle in this industry, having money alone, you need to have quite a bit of it. And to your point, if you do manage to squirrel that first little nut up, it really should go into personal development. I'm glad you gave us the overview on your Octane group. Where would, and you did mention some contact, is that all through your social media? Just reach out with like a DM or a message and you'll.
Yeah. I mean, and then investwithgreenlight.com is our landing page at our investment firm, Greenlight Equity Group. So investwithgreenlight.com, you can direct message me through that. I love connecting with people on social media. I think if you really want my attention, grab me on Instagram or Facebook. As much as I try to do as much as I can with LinkedIn, and I will respond to your friend request. It can be a little overwhelming. I think I've got 5,000-6,000 connections on LinkedIn, something like that. And so it can just take a second before I get back to you. But direct messaging me through social media is a great way to reach me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Tate, this has been a killer episode. I've personally enjoyed the hell out of it. So I know
me too, dude.
Usually if I have this much fun, then I know it was great for the audience. So
yeah,
thanks for being, honestly, just for being you. You're
thanks,
tremendous
man.
guest.
No,
all right, guys.
That's such a nice thing to say. Appreciate it. This was awesome.
I'm dead serious. It really was a lot of fun. So, all right, guys, please share this with a friend if you benefited from it. Give us a rate and review on whatever platform you're enjoying this show today. It makes a huge difference to us, allows us to get you better and better content. If you're into the socials, we are on Yield Coach at Insta, Facebook, and YouTube, and we frequently post about deal opportunities and bonus content. But for now, that's a wrap on the show. I'm your coach, Ian Brown, signing off and reminding everyone to lace up and leave it all on the field. Yield Coach out.